به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله العظيم من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وتركنا على مثل البيضاء ليلها كنهارها لا يزيغ عنها إلا هالك. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وصل وسلم على سيدنا محمد في الآخرين وصل وسلم على سيدنا محمد في كل وقت وحين. My dear respected brothers and sisters, fear Allah as He should be feared and die not except in a state of Islam. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. In previous talks we had spoken about the differences amongst ulama and why they existed and how those differences developed. And one thing that I mentioned, inshallah, I try to just focus a little bit more on today is something which is very central in the differences, and that is the understanding. The understanding of the text, the Quran, of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but also the understanding of the circumstances, the principles of which the deen is based on, understanding the aspects of how legal opinion is based and how it is derived. And that understanding is not something that everybody has. It's certainly not it's something that it's not precious or unique. People can work to understand, but essentially it is something that makes a difference between how a person interacts with the different texts and with the different perspectives. And this difference in understanding was something that the Prophet ﷺ, and indeed the Quran, encouraged people to develop. And that's why you see in the Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions many times the importance of having fiqh. And not fiqh in the terminological sense, but fiqh in its linguistic sense, which is to understand. To understand what Allah is saying, what Allah wants from you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala criticized people who have the tools for understanding, but they don't understand. He said, لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. They have the hearts which have the essence of picking up the messages, but they don't use it to understand. They don't look at the things around them to understand. So one thing that the Prophet ﷺ taught, he didn't just taught how to do salah and how to do hajj and how to fast and what to buy, how to buy and how to sell, because even though the Prophet ﷺ had a wide access to the ilm, the knowledge of the unseen, he didn't have absolute knowledge of unseen because that is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only. But he had a wide knowledge of ilm al-ghayb, and he knew things to come. He knew things to come, and that's why he would explain to people the signs of the day of judgment and what will happen and so on. But he couldn't tell people exactly what's going to happen because their minds wouldn't accept it. So even when he spoke, I think there is a tradition, I'm not sure if it's sound or not, but when he spoke about the Dajjal coming towards the end of time, and he said he would have a transport which is like an iron mule. An iron mule. Like a donkey, but made out of iron. Which he travels between the sky, between the earth and the sky. Now if he was going to say to them, well, this is like an airplane and has wings, people wouldn't understand that, wouldn't understand the technology related to that. So even though the Prophet ﷺ had that knowledge, he couldn't give the ahkam and the rules for everything that's going to happen. Because then it would be so much. That's why he gave the principles. And then it was up to the ulama to understand the principles of the deen and therefore build on the deen. And so you can see that the Prophet ﷺ, he made the constructions for the deen, but he didn't finalize, meaning everything, all the things are there. All the principles are there. But the intricate details, they had to be left because time's changing. Issues were changing, how people interacted, matters changed. And that is what is important, to have that fiqh, to have that understanding. And even when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, the ulama, the sahaba and the ulama of the sahaba, they were faced with issues. How do we deal with this? Because the Prophet hasn't told us how to deal with this. And one such issue, again related to understanding, was the issue related to inheritance. Because when they looked at inheritance, and especially in one matter, I'll explain very quickly because time is short, is that in the Quran Allah gives a set inheritance for the half brothers and sisters from the mother side. So if somebody has half brothers from the mother side, they get a proportion of the inheritance, which can be up to a third. Okay? And then the father will get a portion, the mother gets a portion, the daughters might get a portion, the husband or wife gets a portion. Now when everybody gets a portion, and all the portions are, after all the portions are divided, the remaining is divided, is given to the sons and the daughters. Or if there's no sons and daughters, they are given to the full brothers and sisters. So when they looked at this matter, and some of the people came and they said, look, if we give the portion to our half brothers, there's nothing going to be remained for us, and we are full brothers. And we are closer to the deceased than the half brothers, and we're not getting anything. The Quran is giving everything to the half brothers. And so they came with an important, when Umar said, well, this is what the Quran says. So they said to him, well, imagine our father was a stone. Imagine our father was a stone, meaning our father didn't exist. We still share the mother. So how come they get something, we don't get anything? We still share the same mother. But on top of that, we share the father as well. So Umar said, yes, you're right. And so he dealt with this sort of mathematical issue of how to give the full brothers a share of the inheritance, where otherwise the half brothers would have got it and the full brothers would have got it. It's a bit complicated, and maybe I'm sure it's not that easy to understand. But the point being is that there were issues which needed understanding of principles. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Whoever Allah wants good for him will give him fiqh in the deen. And fiqh is not to memorize the arkan of wudu. The fara'id of wudu are 6, and the arkan of salah are 13, and 4 things break the wudu, and this is what makes up ghusl. It's not to memorize it, it's to understand. Understand where there is leniency in the deen, and where there is matters which are constricted, where there is flexibility, and so on. And that's why it's very important for us. And a number of you have approached me and said that, we attend the jumu'ah, and usually we come, we don't know, people come and they leave, we don't know how much knowledge they actually retain after that. So there is a need for us, inshallah, and we're hoping to introduce a new program so that everybody who comes to the jumu'ah, inshallah, those who want to enroll on this program, will at least be taking away some points of knowledge when they go away, and they can be further mentored, inshallah. So we're on this journey of knowledge, as the Prophet ﷺ described it, and I mentioned it last time. That this journey is helped, so that you, as you come to the jumu'ah, you listen to the khatib, but you take away something, and you are then further quizzed with that, so you can grow in your understanding of the deen. Because that's what's important for the Muslim today, is to know how to apply the fiqh of the deen. And the fiqh is not reserved to the ulama only. Yani the lay person has to have a considerable amount of knowledge as well. And I remember a story, unfortunately I forgot the name of the imam, but there was a faqih, there was an imam who was from the Maliki madhab. He was living in Baghdad.
And for some reason or another,
he felt that he had enough of Baghdad. He said, I'm going to leave. Too much arguing, too much quarreling, I'm going to leave Baghdad. So he decided to leave, he packed his bags, and he went to leave Baghdad. I think this was about in the 3rd or 4th century after the Hijrah. As he was leaving, on the outskirts, there was 2 farmers, 2 workers. They were working, and he overheard what they were saying. One of them said, he said to the other, he said, if Ibn Abbas was alive, I would have said to Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anh, that his fatwa in regards to al-istithna fil qasam. The qasam is when you swear an oath, you say, Wallahi, I will do this. This is a binding oath. But then, what happens if you then make an exception? You say, unless this or this. Ibn Abbas said, al-istithna is valid even if it's after a long time. So I say, for example, Wallahi, I'm not gonna cut my hair. It's a binding thing. But then after 1 week or 2 weeks or a month, I say, unless I don't know, somebody dies or something, I don't know, something like this. This exception, he said, even if it happens after a long time, will be valid, it will be counted. Other ulama said, no, the exception has to be done there and there. And it has to be done within a short space, can't be a long time after that. And it's a big matter anyway. So this farmer was saying, he said, Ibn Abbas was like, I said to him that his fatwa was wrong. Why? He said, because when Allah spoke to Ayyub alayhi salam, Ayyub made this oath that I'm going to lash my wife 100 lashes because she went and started working and so on. The story with Ayyub alayhi salam. He said if istithna was correct, Allah could have told Ayyub alayhi salam to make an istithna, to say, to make an exception and not to have to lash her. But Allah said, no, get 100 grass straws and just give her 1 lash with 100, that will count as 100. He even said, if the istithna was valid, Allah would have said that to Ayyub. So here, this faqih was listening to these farmers arguing in a matter of fiqh. He said, subhanallah, a city which the farmers are debating a matter of fiqh related to Ibn Abbas, this is not a city that should be left. And then he went back to Baghdad and stayed there. So you can see that fiqh is something which is about making your mind, to use your mind in understanding. And previously I told you about how people, they interacted, and one of the reasons for ikhtilaf is because they looked at the entirety. Many of us today, and I heard many people, they questioned, there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is, whoever fasts Ramadan, Man Sama Ramadan, and then follows it 6 days of Shawwal, it's like he's fasted the whole year. And I remember that there was a discussion happening on WhatsApp, and somebody brought up the fatwa of Imam Malik. Imam Malik said that the fasting is not restricted to Shawwal. Yeah, the person can fast any 6 days, doesn't have to fast from Shawwal. And some people were criticizing Imam Malik in this WhatsApp group. Oh, I don't understand, how can Imam Malik make the hadith so clear, fasting from Shawwal, 6 days. And then I was listening to a lecture the other day, and you're saying that Imam Malik, one of the things that Imam Malik used Because the word min in the Arabic language has a number of meanings. It can either mean للتبعيض or as part of, or it can mean للابتداء, to begin with. Like say I traveled min London, I went from London, from Mecca. Min means from. So Imam Malik said the min in this hadith للابتداء means whoever fasts 6 days starting from Shawwal. That means he can fast any other 6 days. You see, the fiqh and the understanding of the letter min in this context makes a difference of how you understand the whole text. Because also Imam Malik said, well, I don't see the people of Medina doing this anyway, and this is a big other issue about how he used the text. And previously I spoke to you about the differences about how the ulama understand the letter ba in the wudu, and how they differed in the hukum in that regard, and even understanding one word and how does it, the context, for example, the word lamasa and lamas, all these things go back to the understanding of the deen. And that's why it's very important for us today, as we try to learn Islam, is that we don't learn just things in a rigid way, but we understand principles. And principles mean that a person will understand how to interact with changing times. So therefore you'll be able to apply the knowledge when you are faced with a situation. How do you apply that knowledge? How do you apply that in the context that you have? And that way, your deen has an application in life. It doesn't mean that you start to issue fatwas and you start to tell this is haram and this is halal. This is obviously not what we're saying here. But what we're saying is that you understand the principles, so therefore you are wider, you are better accepting of how things can be done. And your deen now has an application in its life which is more relevant to you. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وعلى عباد الله. اتقوا الله كما أمر، فإنه قال يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. Indeed, understanding the deen is something which is very fundamental, as I mentioned. And it is important for a person to have this because you are requested to practice your deen, and you are requested to attempt the best way to practice the deen. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question you about. Because your ibadah should be based on realities. It cannot be based on suspicion, or just I don't know, I'm just doing this, maybe it's right, maybe it's not right. And that's why it's very important that a person educates himself and is educated and carries on the work of education. You consider these two farmers, they are thinking about this matter, that's their issues. They are debating matters because they are using their minds to think how this could be interpreted in this way or another way. And that's what the ulama of the past did as well. They looked at matters and they looked at issues and they allowed themselves to develop the way of how they understand. And that comes through struggle and through patience. A lot of people today don't have patience when it comes to learning. They don't have patience because they feel they want, we live in a fast food industry culture today. Everything has to be fast. I remember about 20 years ago we had there's a computer called the 286 or something like that. It shows you how old I am. 286 would take like about 5 minutes or 10 minutes to load up, just to start. And then after that, you take, just to press a button and then what? Very slow. Nowadays, if the computer is not working within 5 seconds, we get agitated and frustrated and bang the table or the wall. We're living in this fast culture, we don't have patience anymore. And knowledge and learning takes time. And if you want to learn and you want to educate, you have to be ready to be patient. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in a surah that we should be reciting on a weekly basis. He told us how He sent one of the greatest people of mankind. He sent him to another great man to learn from him. Even though Musa alayhi salam was one of the highest rated prophets and messengers, He sent him on a journey to go and learn from Al-Khidr. And the first thing Al-Khidr said to him, إِنَّكَ لَن تَسْتَطِيعَ مَعِيَ صَبْرًا. You will not have patience with me. That is the key. If you want to learn, you must be patient. You must watch and observe. And subhanAllah, the more we look at this story, the more we see, a lot of people who have gone today, have gone, off course, are people who don't have patience with the ilm, with the knowledge. And they were ready to issue things based on, maybe they read a hadith, or they read like that person who criticized Imam Malik, because he doesn't even know the word difference between the letter min, when min is applied and how it's applied and so on. So ready to criticize without understanding the bigger context. So we have to have that sabr, because if we don't have that sabr, we will give up quickly. And we will give up quickly, and therefore we will not continue. So today what we're saying to you is that, alhamdulillah, there is a journey with knowledge, and we're wanting to help you with this journey. And because the first knowledge, or the first part of revelation, started in the cave of Hira, with the Prophet ﷺ being given that instruction of Iqra. And this organization, as you are aware of, is called Hira as well. And so we've launched this program which is called Enter the Cave. Enter the Cave, an educational based program where step by step you are building on your knowledge. And hopefully you will able to access the different aspects of understanding the key issues of the deen. And by understanding those key issues of the deen, you can improve your life, you can improve the lives of those around you, and you can have a better focus, because you don't want to be in the hellfire, which is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said when He said about those people who have hearts but they don't understand. وَلَقَدْ ذَرَأْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. So this educational program is there, inshallah. We hope that you will join us and be part of it and enroll into this program. And by doing that, inshallah, through the different highlights that we have, the different occasions, the different stops, we will inshallah learn and educate and understand. And you'll have the advantage, inshallah, of being supported in that regards as well. And remember that sometimes through lack of fiqh, lack of understanding, you could be doing something wrong, and you could be causing a lot of problems. You might endanger people's lives, or you might even endanger people's akhirah. You judge people to be saying, you're saying this is haram and this is halal, or this is Islam and this is kufr, and this is, by not understanding the reality of things. And I just end with this last example, which today, we still surprisingly have people who deny that the earth is spherical. There are people still out there, and even just last week on Facebook somebody was writing to me about how the earth is not spherical, and it's vast, and all this is just a con, and it's made up by images and so on and so forth. But that's not the sad reality. The sad reality is using the Quran to justify this understanding. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says how He created the earth. And أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the ard being bisata, it's being, has been spread out and has been made vast, and using these words to try and justify that the earth is flat. And the main point of problematic here is because not understanding the word ard, al-ard, in the Arabic language doesn't just mean the globe or the celestial body. The ard means a number of things. It can mean the body as the globe, it can mean the land, it can mean the soil. You know, جُعِلَتْ لِيَ الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا وَطَهُورًا. And Allah uses the word ard in different meanings because that's the Arabic language. So the lack of understanding how the word al-ard is used in the Arabic language means that a person can say, well, whenever al-ard is mentioned, it means the body of the global body. And therefore when it means that Allah says He has made it, He has spread it out, that means the globe is spread out. It cannot be circular, it cannot be spherical. And that's a lack of understanding of the text. You might want to use other evidence to say that the earth is flat. Go and use those other evidences. Do not debate on that. But don't use the Quran and the lack of understanding of the language to justify something which then comes back on us to say that, well, look at what the Muslims are saying and look what the Quran is saying. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا وعافنا واعف عنا وتب علينا انك انت التواب الرحيم وتقبل منا انك انت السميع العليم. اللهم ربنا ظلمنا انفسنا وان لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. اللهم ربنا اغفر لاخواننا واخواتنا في جميع انحاء العالمين. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الاحياء منهم والاموات. اللهم ربنا اطف باخواننا واخواتنا في جميع انحاء العالمين. من كان فقيرا فاغنه ومن كان جائعا فاطعمه ومن كان حافيا فاحمله. اللهم من كان مريضا من أمة محمد فشافه وعافه ومن مات من أمة محمد فارحمه يا الله رحمة واسعة وارحمنا يا الله إذا صرنا إلى ما صاروا إليه. ربنا اغفر لنا ولوالدينا وارحمهم كما ربونا صغارا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وقنا بالصلاة الحمد لله. Brothers and sisters, Jazakumullah khair for your continuous support and donations. MashaAllah, last